All right, let's get right into it. When you think about a project, what do you see in your head? Is it just a straight line, a list of tasks marching forward in time? Or is it more like a complex web where everything is connected to everything else? Today, we're going to break down two really powerful ways to look at a project, as a timeline and as a map. And just so you know where all this great info is coming from, this entire explainer is built on the expert research and analysis of NGR Abdul Rahman Mahmood. We're drawing from his work to make sure everything we cover is solid, credible, and super practical. Now, to really understand why this stuff matters, you have to look at the stakes. Get this. A study from the Rose-Hulman Institute of Technology found that a mind-blowing 95% of project failures could have been prevented. Think about that. They're not failing because of some big mystery. They're failing because we're not using the right playbook.
So that begs the question, right? What are these game-changing yet somehow overlooked practices? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is simply choosing the right tool for the job, the right way to see your project clearly.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we'll dig into why so many projects go off the rails. Then we'll talk about the art of planning. After that, we'll get into our two main tools, the Gantt chart and then CPM and PERT. And we'll wrap it all up by putting them head to head so you know exactly when to use each one.
All right, let's tackle that big, scary number right away. The 95% problem. It's not just a statistic. It stands for blown budgets, missed deadlines, and honestly, a lot of brilliant ideas that just never made it to the finish line.
But here's the most important thing to remember. This isn't about bad luck. It's about bad habits. Over 95% of these failures are avoidable. That means if we just shift our approach, use the right planning, and visualize our work correctly, we can flip those odds completely in our favor. So how do we fight back against that 95%? Well, it all starts with planning. You have to think of solid project planning as your shield, your first and frankly, your most important line of defense against all the chaos. So what is project planning really? At its core, it's all about using schedules to do two things. One, to map out the road ahead, and two, to report on your progress as you travel down that road. It's your blueprint and your GPS, all rolled into one. And this planning isn't just guesswork. It follows a really clear, logical flow. First, you define the scope. What are we actually trying to do here? Then you break it all down into a list of individual tasks. Then comes the crucial third step, defining dependencies. Which tasks have to be finished before others can even start. And finally, you estimate how long each of those tasks is going to take. These steps give us all the raw data we need for our tools. Okay, with that foundation in place, let's get to our first tool. And I'm willing to bet this is the one you've seen a million times before, the Gantt chart. This is how you see your project as a timeline.
The beautiful thing about a Gantt chart is its simplicity. It's basically a bar chart that lays out all your tasks against a calendar. It's built to answer one fundamental question: what happens when and for how long?
And reading one is super intuitive. You've got your timeline, your dates, running horizontally across the bottom. Then you've got your list of tasks stacked vertically on the side. Each of those colored bars represents one task, and its length shows you exactly when it starts and when it's supposed to end. It's a powerful way to see your entire project schedule in a single snapshot. But what if your project isn't a simple, straight road? What if it's more like a complicated city grid with tons of intersections and traffic jams? Well, for that, you need a different tool. You don't need a timeline, you need a map. And that is where CPM and PERT come into the picture. So first up, we've got CPM, or the critical path method. Now, this is not just a simple chart. This is a heavy-duty, mathematically based algorithm that was actually developed by the US Navy way back in the 1950s. So it means business. And right alongside it is its close cousin, PERT. Now, while CPM is all about finding the path, PERT is fantastic for analyzing the time you'll need for each task and figuring out the absolute minimum time it'll take to complete the whole project. In the real world, you'll often see them used together. And this is basically what that map looks like. It's called a network diagram. See how it's not just a linear timeline? You've got these nodes representing tasks, and the arrows show the flow of the project. And those arrows, that's where the magic is. They show you the dependencies, the who waits for what stuff, that a simple Gantt chart just can't visualize very well. So what does this map tell you that the timeline doesn't? It calculates the single most important piece of information for any complex project, the critical path. That's the longest sequence of dependent tasks, and it dictates the total time your project will take. Any delay on that path, and the entire project gets delayed. It tells you which tasks have zero, and I mean zero, wiggle room.
Okay, so we've got our timeline and we've got our map. Let's put them side by side to really get a feel for when and why you would choose one over the other.
Honestly, this is the simplest way to think about it. A Gantt chart is a timeline. Its main focus is time. A PERT chart is a map. Its main focus is on dependencies. One tells you when things happen, the other tells you how things are all connected.
And this table breaks it down even further. Gantt is a bar chart. PERT is a network diagram. Gantt is awesome for smaller, more straightforward projects, but PERT and CPM, they absolutely shine when you're dealing with large, complex projects, where understanding that web of dependencies is the key to survival. A Gantt is simple. A PERT chart can look complex, but that complexity is exactly where its power comes from.
So, at the end of the day, here's the big takeaway. Effective project management isn't just about making a to-do list and sticking some dates on it. It's about deeply understanding the relationships between all the moving parts so you can find that one single path that determines your project's fate, the critical path to success. And that leaves us with one final question to take with you. As you start planning your next big project, ask yourself this. Is the challenge mainly about scheduling tasks against a calendar? Or is the real challenge navigating a complex jungle of dependencies? In other words, are you going to need a timeline, or are you going to need a map?
Our insights for this explainer came from a range of excellent sources, which you can see listed right here. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope this gives you a much clearer vision to help navigate your next project to success.